Welcome and hello there. It's another part of the Versus series. This time, it's not album versus album. It's not just band versus band. It's 5 albums against 5 albums. The mighty Metallica, their first 5 against the equally mighty Slayer. What could possibly go wrong? It's rock metal. It's hellish. It's fabulous. Let's do this versus series. Slayer versus Metallica. Bring it on. So we're going to start with the debut albums, both released in 1983. From Metallica, we have Kill 'Em All, which has the hits Ride the Lightning, Four Horsemen, Seek and Destroy, among others, taking on Slayer's Show No Mercy with the Antichrist, Black Magic, and of course, Show No Mercy. These songs are still played in their gigs today. They have lasted the test of time. You know, these songs, when you think about it now, it is a scary thought. They're nearly 40 years old. 38 years old. Showing me age now. Both albums, yeah, as a debut, pretty different. You listen to Kill 'Em All by Metallica, it's very new age of British heavy metal. You get your Maiden influences in there. You can get a bit of Deep Purple. You know, it's quite lively. It's very raw Metallica. Much more, you know, oomph about it than maybe the latter day Metallica, even the later stages of the 80s going into the 90s. It's a great album. Show No Mercy, a bit more menace to this album. You know, it's dark, it's supposed to be dark, it's gloomy. You know, you can sort of see and smell the smoke, the smallness of the rooms that this album would have been played in. Still, great album. You know, as debuts, yeah, they're both pretty good. Then the following year came and Ride the Lightning comes out by Metallica. So they released that one in 1984 with hits like, of course, Ride the Lightning. It's also got on there For Whom the Bell Tolls, Creeping Death. You know, these are, again, stuff that they still play now. What they started to do also for Metallica in the next 3 albums was put on a what's the word? It was an instrumental. Yeah, they put on a couple of instrumentals on the next 3 albums, which gave you something a bit different. Then in 1985, we get Hell Awaits with, of course, the single Hell Awaits, also At Dawn They Sleep, and Necronomica. You know, this is a band which really did come up with some dark material. You know, singing about serial killers and people who like to sleep with the dead, and lots of devil worshipping and stuff like that. The following year, 1986, was the Holy Land of heavy metal. The 2 greatest metal albums in the history of metal came out. In 1986, Metallica released the masterpiece, Master of Puppets, with such songs as, of course, Master of Puppets, Welcome Home, Sanitarium, Battery. It was fantastic. For me, probably the best heavy metal album of all time. But whoa. Let's hold it a minute. Because at the same time, the same year, Slayer released Rain in Blood, the heaviest album of all time. It was fast, it was powerful, it was under 30 minutes. It gave you the single at the beginning, which almost meant that this album wasn't going to be released. It had Angel of Death, sung about Joseph Mengele. If you don't know who Joseph Mengele is, he was the infamous doctor at the Auschwitz concentration camp. Song about him. Rain in Blood, literally. It was Rain in Blood, Ultra Sacrifice. Rain in Blood, of course, the song which had the clap of thunder, and then you knew it was there. It was all about power. It was all about those power notes and getting that adrenaline running. When I compare the two albums, it's difficult for me because as a piece of music, I would definitely say Master of Puppets is a better piece of music as an album. In fact, when you look at all five of these albums, it's hard to say that Metallica don't musically have better music. But what Slayer have over Metallica is that rawness, which they lost after Ride Lightning Metallica. And there's something punchy and it's just, yeah, let's go. Metallica, they're not laid back, not by any means. They're still metal hard and absolute phenomenal. Sorry about the change of lights, by the way. I've got my heater on, it's a bit chilly out here. But Slayer are just fantastic live. Not saying Metallica aren't, but Slayer are just ferocious, And on those first three albums, there's still stuff played by both bands in their live gigs, which is awesome. It shows, the old catalogue of these bands was there for a reason. And the reason is it was brilliant. So then, things happen in the world in 1988. Both bands released their next albums. So for Slayer, it was South of Heaven, which had the title track as the first song. It also had Live Undead and Ghosts of War, and it was definitely slowed down. They had the foresight to think, you know what, we're not going to be able to get a lot faster and a lot more aggressive than that last album. Turning that off because it's really messing with the light. So they weren't going to be able to get the same extremeness from Rain and Blood. But what they did is they had South of Heaven, which is a extremely notable song in that catalogue. It's probably as notable for Slayer fans as Enter Sandman is for Metallica fans. It's instant. Yeah, that's the one. They got a couple like that, but their range and different beginnings aren't quite so obvious as certain other bands. That's because of the speed and the power, of course. The same year, and Justice for All was released. But the sad thing was when Metallica were out actually touring for the Master of Puppets, bassist Cliff Burton died, which was terrible loss. Obviously one of the greatest bassists in the history of heavy metal. He was replaced by Jason Newsted, great young bassist. He got a lot of stick from Metallica though, but a lot of it wasn't his fault. So on the Justice for All album we had One, which is probably the most famous song on the album. It's a song which is about a soldier going off to war and losing some limbs, and the darkness was imprisoning him and all that. Also on the Harvest of Sorrow and Blackened, it was quite a dark, aggressive album. And we're now looking at album times, which I'll come back to in a minute, but this particular album was now going over an hour. So when you compare band for band, you're getting more time for your buck by Metallica than you are Slayer. So then we move into the 1990s, and in 1990 Slayer released the album Season in the Abyss, which obviously has the title song Season in the Abyss. Also War Ensemble, Expendable Youth, and Dead Skin Mask, the song about the serial killer. Lovely use of material from Slayer, I'm sure you agree. All the nice things we like to know about: serial killers, doctors at concentration death camps, hell, and all sorts. Again, this album wasn't the full throttle of certainly Rain and Blood, but even the first two albums, they'd grown up a lot. If you were to go now and listen to A Decade of Aggression, which was their first long length live album, and take it against the Killology, there's, okay, a couple of people are different in the bands, but the actual instrumental ability and skills, I feel, as they get older as a band, going back to the older material, improves it. And I think it sounds great. You know, one of my favorite highlights of the album, it's all a highlight, but is when they go from South of Heaven into Rain and Blood. And it's just awesome. And then from the end there, it just gets better and better. Finishing, of course, with Angel of Death. Because why wouldn't you? And then Metallica, some people would say sold out. They produced the Metallica album, or the Black Album, whatever you want, the little, black cover with the snake on. This album was very much studio, and you can tell it didn't have the rawness of the other four. It was very polished, very complete. But to be fair, they then put on one of the greatest tours in the history of metal. Over the next 3 years, they toured this album. On there, you've got the likes of Enter Sandman, which is probably, if you were to take a Metallica song and play it to the masses, it would be the one which most people would recognise. Also on there, The Unforgiven, for me, one of their better songs. And then the so-called love song of Nothing Else Matters. I know that Tom Arana from Slayer says that Dead Skin Mask is a love song. Not the sort of love song you really want sung to you, though. But that's it. So overall, yeah, brilliant albums. So let's have a look at the quick idea on the lengths of these albums. So Metallica's Kill 'Em All, 51 minutes and 20 seconds, compared to Show No Mercy, 35 minutes. Ride the Line then was 57 minutes compared to the 37 minutes of Hell Awaits. 55 minutes for Master of Puppets, 28 minutes for Rain and Blood, and it's a masterpiece. And Justice for All was 65 minutes compared to 35 minutes or 36 minutes of South of Heaven. The Black Album, 62.5 minutes compared to 42.5 minutes for South of Heaven. If I had to choose one album there, it's going to be Master of Puppets. For me, the greatest heavy metal album of all time. Secondly, it would then be Rain and Blood. For me, the third album for both these bands were the best. Instrumentally, I'm going to have to give it to Metallica. But for that, yeah, this rock, it's going to Slayer. So, instrumentally, if the music is what you're after, yeah, probably just about Metallica. Most kick-ass, yeah, it's got to be Slayer, isn't it? It's got to be Slayer. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. We'll call that one a draw, shall we? Depending on which day of the week and what I want to listen to. I would say, though, that I do listen to more Slayer than I do Metallica. So if that means anything, if that means that Slayer are better, I don't know. The thing is, it's your view, isn't it? What do you like to listen to? What do you feel like today? It's like saying, oh, what's your favourite film? Not many films I like to watch. It depends on what mood I'm in. It's the same with music. You can listen to either of those bands, or you could go off and listen to some Queen or the Killers, whoever. It's up to you. But on the whole, I'm the person making the video. I've got to choose. I would say out of those top 5 albums, yeah, by a margin, because of the musical abilities, I'd say Metallica just about win on this versus series. I hope you watched to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give a thumbs up. Leave us a comment. If you could share on your platforms, that would be fantastic. And I hope you all have a good day. See you, pals.